Mangwana ni Mwalelepo Vungejani Klekwas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Anna Raiza Koyo and Ashwin Berry, ready to engage with the content.
Here are the top stories this morning. Trump has until next week to voluntarily surrender to face Georgia charges. Madagascan president chief to staff charge with bribery in the UK, and Nigeria army helicopter crashes amid deadly attack. You may follow all our programs on our website, which is called oneup2.com, DSTV 285. and GoTV 25 in Namibia. On this particular show, we have Arihoha today bringing us the news making waves in South Africa. We'll be right back with our top stories. In our top story this morning, Trump has until next week to voluntarily surrender to face Georgia charges. Former U.S. President Donald Trump was indicted Tuesday on charges of racketeering a string of election crimes after a sprawling two-year probe into his effort to overturn his 2020 defeat to Joe Biden in the U.S. state of Georgia. The case, relying on laws typically used to bring down mobsters, is the fourth targeting the 77-year-old Republican this year and could lead to a watershed moment, the first televised trial of a former president in U.S. history. Prosecutors in Atlanta charged Trump with 13 felony counts, compounding the legal threats he is facing in multiple jurisdictions as a firestorm of investigations imperils his bid for the second White House term. 18 co-defendants were indicated in the probe, including Trump's former personal lawyer Rudy Giuliani, who pressured local legislators over the results after the election, and Trump's White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, with Trump already due to go to trial in New York, South Florida, and Washington. The latest charges herald the unprecedented scenario of the 2024 presidential election being litigated as much from the courtroom as the ballot box, rather than abide by Georgia's legal process of election challenges. The defendants engage in criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn Georgia's presidential election results.
All right, now interestingly, Rudy Giuliani, who's being tried alongside Trump, is the one who championed the RICO law. And the RICO law says if you are just aligned with, perhaps at that time it was about a gang, if you're aligned with a gang, even though you weren't caught in the crime that allowed you to get prosecuted, you can get prosecuted. So a little bit of legal irony there in the United States. Now, something that is not ironic is internet supply, and it seems to be in risk as the only underwater cable laying ship authorized to tackle the repair of undersea cables in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa is still more than 8,000 kilometers away from the site where the two cables critical to the provision of internet services in South Africa snapped on the same day. The Leon Thevenin is just off the coast of Kenya on the east coast of Africa. The West Africa Cable System and the South Atlantic Telecommunications Cable number 3 snapped on the west coast of Africa off the coast of the Democratic Republic of Congo. News 24 had a look at the position of the ship on Marine Traffic, a maritime analytics provider, and saw that it was still located off the coast of Kenya, where it is involved in another marine repair. The repair vessel will have to make the more than 8,000 kilometer journey around the southern tip of the continent.
Madagascan President's Chief of Staff charged with bribery in the UK. The President of Madagascar's Chief of Staff and an associate have been charged with bribery offences in Britain following a fast-paced police investigation, the UK's National Crime Agency said on Monday. Romy Andriassonea, who's 46, the top aide to Madagascan President Andry Rajoelina, and Philippe Tabuteo, who is 54, are accused of seeking a bribe from a British mining company to secure licenses to operate in Madagascar. The pair were remanded in custody on Saturday after they were arrested Thursday in central London at a meeting where they are suspected of having attempted to solicit a bribe, the NCA said. They are next set to appear in court in South London on the 8th of September. The NCA, which targets serious and organized crimes in Britain and internationally, said its probe began after the mining firm Gemfield raised concerns with the agency.
Seeking bribery from an international company with regards to natural resources sounds familiar. Moving on, the World Health Organization classified EG.5, which has been nicknamed as Eris by some, as a variant of interest, indicating that it should be more closely watched than others because of mutations that might make it more contagious or severe. Still, the WHO said at this time it does not seem to pose more of a threat to public health than other variants, and that there is no evidence of an increase in disease severity directly associated with EG.5. EG.5 had been found in more than 50 countries as of August 8, according to WHO. It is the most common and fastest growing COVID-19 subvariant in the US, estimated to be responsible for around 17% of current COVID cases, according to the CDC. COVID-19 related hospitalizations are up more than 40% off of recent lows hit in June, but are still more than 90% below peak levels hit during the January 2022 Omicron outbreak, according to CDC data.
In our next story, Nigeria Army helicopter crashes amid a deadly attack. A Nigerian military helicopter sent to rescue wounded soldiers from a deadly attack in the central Niger state crashed on Monday after it was reportedly fired on by bandits. More than a dozen soldiers area are said to have been killed in an ambush in the area where the army has been fighting armed groups. Military sources were quoted by AFP news agency as saying that at least 26 members of the Nigerian security forces were killed and 8 wounded in the attack on Sunday. Local media in Nigeria, however, reported that at least 13 soldiers have been killed in the ambush. According to the AFP news agency, rescue helicopters had been carrying 11 of the dead and 7 of the wounded before the crash. Rescue operations and investigations were underway in an Air Force spokesperson has said, without giving information on casualties from the crash.
Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Now, the unemployment rate in South Africa fell in 2023. So we'll be talking to Ari Hohad as he gives us an update of the stories in the Rainbow Nation after the break.
Welcome to Active Kids, a daily TV show that sparks creativity, learning, and fun for young minds. With exciting activities and lessons, Active Kids inspires curiosity and a love for learning.
New face to the 15.
The perfect mix of play and education. Don't miss out on the fun. Tune into Active Kids on NTV every weekday at 10 o'clock and let the adventure begin.
All right, Ari Hohad is joining us from South Africa as he gives us an update on the latest news. Ari, it seems South Africans are finding it difficult to pay back home loans and credit cards as a report from Absa Bank indicates a sharp rise in impairments. Could you please get into that? Thank you for joining us.
Yes, a very good morning, Ashwin and everyone. Yes, I think globally everybody is struggling probably, but South Africa definitely feeling it. Lots of reasons that we know. The electricity crisis is one of them. Unemployment, a massive factor as well. But there's a surge in debt that was from the portfolio of ABSA, that's the fourth biggest bank in South Africa. They have their loan portfolio information that they gave, and the credit card impairments are up 70%. And that value is up to 2.4 billion for ABSA. So people battling to pay back credit cards. Personal loans also up 51%, 1.5 billion affected there, and rand's worth of protection. And then home loans also up 258%. That's a big rise. It's not a big number, 975 million, but it's ABSA still say that it's got a quality loan book, and they've got 300 billion rand worth of home loans on book. That is ABSA, so it's a big book for them, but still there's a big change there in people battling to pay back. So that is a concern, but after all, ABSA said that they're happy with their results. They've got a good corporate and investment bank side that did very well. The headline earnings up 2% for them, up to 10.7 billion. So big numbers talking there for ABSA, but the credit impairment is a big challenge, and it's not only for ABSA, it will be affected for all banks, will be similar.
All right, Are, moving on to your next story, please tell us about the collision course related to the railway system challenges in Cape Town.
Yes, it's coming on the back of the taxi strike that's still bubbling. There's still some things happening there that's not in place with the taxi strike that just finished on Friday. But the railway system's been under threat for a long time, and Cape Town, that is the mayor, Mr. Gordon Hill-Lewis. So he's been challenging government and PRASA for some time for a committee, they call it a working committee, to put together. It was coming from last year. There was questions about that earlier this year. So he, in fact, that the kind of threatened the president and said, but they will declare intergovernmental dispute if they don't get that committee up by the end of August. So President Ramaphosa said he's not going to be threatened, but so it's becoming, unfortunately, in Cape Town, a battle between the national government and the provincial government, which is obviously ANC and DA, leading up to the election next year. So it's visible for all of us here in Cape Town that we can see there's a struggle there, that Cape Town trying to get things in place in many ways, but then they don't get the backing from national government. So hopefully that can be increased. At the moment, it is taxis that got 67% of all the people that transported, 67% go to taxis, and just 6% for railway. It used to be almost 50 or 60% just 10 years ago. So it is a concern. Cape Town feel the railway needs some attention, and they need it quickly.
All right, Ari, I'm going to take a moment to tee you up with the next story. We all know Cosa Nostra, also known as the Italian Mafia, Hells Angels, perhaps the 23 gang here in Southern Africa. They have one thing in common, and by the way, I'm not glorifying them, but they do have one thing in common, which is no women, no children, no houses. This is sort of a code of conduct amongst criminals, so to speak. But it seems when it comes to corruption, there are actually no bounds, because President Cyril Ramaphosa has had to launch a special unit investigation into R1 billion corruption at a hospital. Tell us more, Ari.
Yes, I'm spot on with you there, Ashwin, and the concern for everyone is that it took him 2 years to do that. That's the concern. So we know that COVID in between, that's always the reason, but it's really sad. It was suspicious transactions that was flagged by a woman called Babita Dukaran, and that's her. She worked in the finance department, and she flagged 1,200 transactions. The very, very sad situation here is 3 weeks later, she was gunned down just outside her home and died. So that is very sad. And it took them still 2 years to investigate it. So there is now a committee formed, but it is in South Africa, that is the theme, unfortunately, from Phala Phala to President Zuma. So you can call any court case Ace Magashule. Everything is just taking a long, long time, and it's on the commission, no people getting to court. So it is a trend in South Africa, unfortunately, but now it has been set up. One interesting fact is that one of the implicated 9 people are Hanwani Manuela, and he is President Ramaphosa's nephew from a previous marriage. But President Ramaphosa did state many times that they do not know him at all. So that is possible. So we can't link that, obviously. But there's 9 people implicated, 3 resigned, and the rest were suspended on the 10th of July. So hopefully people will get to the right place and get to court for if there's, in fact, not correct transactions in that hospital.
All right, Ari, and finally, the unemployment rate in South Africa fell in the second quarter of 2023 as 154,000 people were employed during this time. Please expand on this.
Yes, that's good news. It's a high number. A percentage sounds low, but it's coming from an unemployment rate of 34%. So that's understandable. We must just understand there's still 7.9 million people unemployed in South Africa, so it's still a high rate. But it's good news for 154 people employed. Construction produced 104,000 new jobs and trade 92,000. But I think the concern for everyone is the graduates, people that actually do have a qualification and degrees and diplomas. There's still unemployment of 9.6% in that category. And the youth battling in South Africa, from the youth category in South Africa, is age 15 to 34, and 4.7 million people unemployed there. And the big challenge is December, end of the year. Then there's hundreds of thousands of new people coming out of school, flooded into the system, into the statistics. That will be, some will get jobs and many unemployed again. So it remains a challenge, but it seems that it's a little bit better than it was obviously the past 2-3 years with COVID as well. So hopefully things will change. We just need a bit more electricity, so then things will work out a lot better.
Yeah, you almost want to say one struggle at a time. You know, I was tempted to be overly optimistic, but we do have the onus to be, you know, honest about the facts, and that feels more like fetching a bucket out of a swimming pool. But hopefully South Africa gets better. Thank you, Ari, for bringing us the news stories from Mzansi.
Yes, big pleasure and a brilliant day for everyone. Bye-bye.
Brilliant day ahead, we hope for, at least, because it's a little warmer than it was at the beginning of the week. Yeah. Let's have a look at the weather predictions.
Let's get into our economic news. 15 lenders vanish in 5 years as banking industry consolidates. At least 15 banks have vanished in the last 5 years as consolidation of financial institutions gains momentum. The number of banks reached 59 in 2017 before dropping to 44 in 2022 following the acquisition of financial institutions which were struggling to survive, according to the Bank of Tanzania. The liberalization of the banking industry in the 1990s stimulated growth and competition among lenders, but recent changes in the economy posed capital challenges to some banks.
And very briefly, Kenyan lender Equity Group Holdings on Tuesday recorded a 14% rise in first half pre-tax profit to 35.2 billion Kenyan shillings. Equity, which also operates in Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, South Sudan, and Democratic Republic of Congo, said growth in its subsidiaries meant that almost half of its balance sheet was now outside of Kenya. That brings us to the end of our economic news stories. We're going to dive into the indicators, and right after that, Ari returns with the sport.
Good day, everyone. Time for international sports news, and starting off with soccer news. And the last game in week 1 of the English Premier League was concluded. It was a big game. It was Manchester United that hosted Wolverhampton at Old Trafford, and a winning start for Erik ten Hag. It's Manchester United that win the game by 1-0. So Erik ten Hag getting his season off to a winning start. There was late controversy in the game. It was close to the end of the game. There was not a penalty awarded to Wolverhampton. It was the goalkeeper of Manchester United, Andre Onana. He crashed into a Wolverhampton player and he failed to make contact with the ball. No penalty was awarded, and after the game it was the head of referees of English Premier League, it was John Moss, that apologised to Wolverhampton and said to coach Gary O'Neill that it was indeed a penalty. But also no guarantee that Wolverhampton would have converted the penalty, of course, to make it 1-0 or 1-1, but there was a good chance for that. But in the end, the results stand. It is Manchester United 1, Wolverhampton 0. On to some tennis news. It is the Cincinnati Open that started. It's the last tournament before the US Open starts at the end of the month. And interesting news, a very exciting news in the women's draw. It was Venus Williams. She's 43 years old, and she won her first round game. And she won it in quite some impressive form. She beat a player that is number 16 in the world currently. That is Veronika Kudermetova of Russia. So it is Venus Williams. She beat her by 6-4 and 7-5 to advance to the second round. Venus Williams currently number 533 in the world rankings, and Kudermetova is number 16 in the world. All the best players play in the Cincinnati Open leading up to the US Open. Number 1 seed is Iga Swiatek, and number 2 seed Aryna Sabalenka, and the 3rd seed in this tournament is Jessica Pegula that just won the Canadian Open the past weekend. In the men's side of the draw, number 1 seed is Carlos Alcaraz, and it will be interesting to see the battle with Novak Djokovic. It's Novak Djokovic that will be number 2 seed after missing the Canadian Open. One result I can mention from the first round is Francis Tiafoe of the USA is number 10 seed. Good win for him. He played against Stalin Griekspoor that played in the semi-final of the Canadian Open. He's in good form, and it's Francis Tiafoe that is number 10 seed. They win by 6-4, 6-7 and 6-4. Tough 3-setter, but it is Francis Tiafoe through to the second round. And closing off today's international sports news, it is golf news, and the uncertainty of the merger between 3 big entities still continue in world of men's golf. It is the possible merger of the USPGA and the DP World Tour, that is the European Tour, and the Saudi Arabian Investment Fund, that is still not confirmed. And so the merger intention was announced a month ago, but it's still lots of detail to be worked through. Even the United States Senate got into it and investigating the merger if it's all above board. But as it stands now, it is the DP World Tour, the European Tour, that announced a big increase in prize money for the 2024 season, and they also added 3 more events. The 3 more events will be in Dubai, also in Bahrain, and also the China Open will return to the European Tour. Also, the total prize money was increased. The total prize money for 2024 will now be €136 million. That is in total for all the tournaments, and that's an increase of almost €6 million. But still, to put it into context, it is a lot of money for the whole tour. But the total prize money paid for one soccer player for Chelsea is the same as this. And so it was Chelsea that confirmed that they've paid Moises Caicedo. He came over from Brighton. He is a midfielder, and Chelsea just confirmed that they paid also €135 million just for that one single player to join them for the coming soccer season. So that just puts it into context. One soccer player is the same value as all the prize money in the total DP World Tour Golf Men's Tour. Well, that's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk again international sports news tomorrow. Goodbye.
All right, that's been our show. Let's have a look at the highlights from this morning's broadcast. Trump has until next week to voluntarily surrender to face Georgia charges. Only one cable-laying ship can fix snapped underwater cables, and it's still on the other side of Africa. Madagascan President's Chief of Staff charged with bribery in the UK. And COVID eras, what to know about new variant EG.5 dominating US cases. 15 lenders